What's up, Thumbers? Welcome back to another episode of Cineverse here on Hyper RPG. Back to talk more movies this week. We've got a lot of movies to cover, actually. We're going to be doing some trailer reactions as well. Mission Impossible Fallout. What else we watching, Cameron?
Bohemian Rhapsody and Happy Small Town Murders or something like that. It's the new Brian Henson movie. So I'm very excited to talk about that one. It's an R-rated. It's basically an R-rated. Don't call it a Muppet movie.
It's perception check in real life.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. So we're gonna be talking about those things. Also, the Cannes Film Festival is happening right now, so I want to talk about a couple things that are happening there.
Yeah.
The major things that I'm reading right now. Lars von Trier has a new movie out there called The House That Jack Built that also has a trailer out that maybe we could watch, but it is an intense, pretty crazy. It's Lars von Trier, so of course it's a movie. It's getting a very controversial discussion right now because it's Lars von Trier, and the movie has to do with a serial killer. So the movie depicts violence against women, children, and animals.
Yeah.
I guess like 100 people walked out before the movie was even over.
Oh, boy.
Yes.
And the people that were there, they gave a standing ovation.
Like, it got a 6-minute standing ovation afterwards.
And some people are like, well, was this really like just to be nice because the other 100 people walked out, or because people genuinely actually like really enjoyed this movie?
Yeah.
So it's divisive.
It's Lars von Trier. It's a Lars von Trier film. I love Lars von Trier, but I also understand who his films are. And along that same route, Gaspar Noé's new film, Climax. Gaspar Noé, who did Irreversible, Into the Void, and Love, has a new film, Climax, and that's getting rapturous reviews, so he's being interviewed. So now he's taking the time to, in all of his interviews, talk shit on big movies.
Black Panther and Star Wars.
He's like, I walked out of Black Panther. It was torture for me. And don't get pulled into that outrage. It's just Gaspar Noé being Gaspar Noé.
Yeah.
I feel like we need a guy to say that. Just,
Right?
you need some pretentious
the
guy to
outside.
just walk around and say that. Just
Yeah.
so there's a guy saying that.
Yeah, there's always going to be that guy. And also Spike Lee. Spike Lee's new movie, The Black Klansman, which has also been getting rapturous reviews out of Cannes.
No, yeah, that looks really interesting.
Yeah, and the trailer's out, and the trailer's a really great trailer. So that's also been there. So a lot of cool stuff looks like coming down the pike.
That's also getting a little bit of controversy more behind the scenes because Jordan Peele's a producer on it.
Yes.
And it's being heavily advertised as a Jordan Peele production. And it's like, really? Hasn't Spike Lee paid his dues that he can kind of just, it can be a Spike Lee joint? We don't have to put
Yeah, but
Oscar
Jordan Peele's
nominated.
new.
Right?
Well, there's that.
Or
and
Oscar
there's-
winning, I should
There's
say.
that, and then there's also, the thing in Hollywood that some people don't like talking about, which is return on investment. And I love Spike Lee. It's been a while since Spike Lee has had a big return on investment
ROI,
movie.
a little low.
Yeah, a little bit. I love a lot of Spike Lee's movies, but it has been a minute since he has had like a film that made a bunch of money and this and the other. So I totally get why they would throw Jordan Peele's name all over it. It's also been a while since Spike Lee's made a comedy, like a straight up comedy. And though this is trying to say something, at the moment at least, they're marketing it very much as a comedy.
Well, then it totally makes sense that they would put Jordan Peele's name all over it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you seen the trailer for this?
No.
We might need to. Okay, then we might not also need to do the Black Klansman. So yeah, those are kind of the major things. Again, we're kind of in that cycle where it's the beginning of the summer season, so there's not a lot of news as far as like casting or this and the other. And
Yeah.
also, we're not the show that does like the big, huge action stuff usually. So we're not like most of the movies we would talk about are probably still being made that we're going to talk about in December.
Yeah.
Yeah, or they're film festival pieces that are not going to be out till the end of the year.
Or it'll drop on Netflix and we've never heard of it, and we're like, oh God, we gotta watch this. This looks great. So yeah, that's kind of the major stuff that's been going on lately. Elizabeth, it's been a minute since you've been here. And we did have some films that you were going to go see. I know you were going to go see. So last time Elizabeth was here, we were talking about seeing I Feel Pretty. Mm-hmm. You ended up seeing I Feel Pretty.
Yeah.
What did you think of I Feel Pretty?
Yeah, I did. Well, I thought we were going to wrap that into the bigger conversation.
This is part of the bigger conversation.
Like, once we talk about other movies.
Throwing you under the bus early.
Right before we start recording. So we're going to talk about that after. Okay.
I didn't know what after. You just said after conversations, and it wasn't what conversation?
Yeah. I mean, to just have a conversation solely on I Feel Pretty, which has been out for like 2 months now.
Still.
I didn't like it. I didn't think it was good. I thought it was like, I love Amy Schumer. I really like Trainwreck. It has some flaws. Like, I didn't love the finale of Trainwreck because I thought the movie was better than that. But really like that her first film. This film is not a film that she co-wrote. or was involved in. She was just cast in, and I can see why they cast her, but I feel like she's funnier than this movie.
Right.
This movie kind of felt it's basically like Shallow Hal, but from the point of view of the woman.
That's what I heard, yeah.
And I would say it has less nuance than Shallow Hal.
Oh.
So like it really did feel like it could have been written for Hallmark or something, and then they're just like, oh, we're just gonna shove talented people in it, not really use their talents, and then say it's a big budget picture now because of our cast.
So does it kind of feel like it's like a Hallmark movie, but like we're gonna use the F word?
Yeah, and it's just like, and they use tropes from other films, like the same shot as like Bridget Jones, which I love, where she's falling off the cycle machine, as is in that trailer, and it's just it's not as funny and it's not as cute, and it's just stuff we've seen before done not as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like their message, like, it's not a bad message to feel like your confidence is what drives you, but it's like very simplified, and they just kind of hit it over and over again without really saying anything or adding anything to it.
Right.
And, you know, Amy Schumer is really charismatic, but I think it's just like, it's hard to bring up that level of writing.
Yeah. It kind of felt like a movie that kind of came and went.
I mean, a lot of people. Yeah. I was gonna say I think a lot of people liked it, but I don't know. I think a lot of people were like, "This is good. I support it," which is I support it is not I liked it.
Yeah. No, I feel like we're kind of in this interesting place with comedies right now. I feel like the most talked about comedy this year so far has been Game Night, which we talked about here. And yeah, I feel like comedy is in an interesting spot right now where I feel like the movies come out and they kind of just come and go. And I don't know if it's just because they're not big budget things, because obviously there will still be comedies that come out that people do talk about, you know, for like weeks after they come out. Like, oh, you guys see this? It's so funny. It's this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it feels kind of like we are in a state. I feel like correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the last 2 years, there really hasn't been a comedy that people are like talking about for a while. Like there hasn't been, and this is like an exception, I guess, to some extent, but like there hasn't been like another Hangover or like 40-Year-Old Virgin or something like that, where it's like, here's a movie that comes out and people are like really talking about, you gotta go see it. I've seen it 3 times. It's so funny.
I feel like it wasn't that high, but a lot of people really like Trainwreck.
But I think that might have been more than 2 years ago now.
Yeah, I think that came out like 2013.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe, I don't know if it's that old.
Maybe 2015. Maybe 2015.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look. I'm curious.
I think the only 2 movies that I've heard people talk about this year is Blockers and Game Night. And I feel like that's the most recent haha movie that I've heard people really talk about. It's like, this is genuinely funny. Anytime people talk about movies that are funny, they tend to be, you know, like Thor Ragnarok is really funny. Guardians of the Galaxy, Spider-Man Homecoming, you know, it's these big budget superhero movies that have a little bit of comedy in them. Right. But not a straight up like funny comedy.
Or
movie.
It'll be like something that doesn't really have a wide release, like Death of Stalin.
Yeah. That's true.
So it's interesting. I don't know if that's just because like maybe like a lot of people's comedy stuff has kind of moved to Netflix. And I don't mean just like the stand-ups, but also like the TV shows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I do think there is a certain amount of that, just sort of like how television is moving from cable to Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
So cable is getting, in a way, dumbed down.
Right.
Because people who would want Frasier and Seinfeld are just going to watch Netflix or HBO. They're not interested in like the main networks anymore.
Yeah.
So those shows just get dumbed down and dumbed down and dumbed down, and people just get more separated. And I feel like that's also happening in film to a certain degree.
Well, we kind of saw that this week with like the cancellation of a lot of shows, which it happens anyway.
So much stuff
but
getting canceled.
The funniest thing about like little TV talk, so that Fox canceled almost every comedy they had and then picked up Last Man Standing, the Tim Allen show.
Yeah.
Which people are referring to as the Roseanne effect, which is like, oh, people don't want...
People love Home Improvement.
Yeah, well, it's not just people loving Home Improvement. It's the Roseanne effect being like, oh, people don't want like, not smart comedy, but people don't want esoteric, strange like Last Man on Earth.
Yeah.
The Will Forte show that got canceled. It's like, oh, well, people.
I think
we're not talking to conservatives enough in our comedy.
People do want it. They just want it on Netflix.
Yeah.
I feel like
The
people with
bingeable.
a liberal then are like leaning to subscription services,
Right.
which leaves cable to a different audience, and they're going to produce shows for that audience.
I came across a tweet. It was like 2 weeks ago or something. There was a girl watching, I don't know. I don't think she was a critic. I don't remember. But it got highly shared. She was sitting in the theater watching I Feel Pretty, and then Greta Gerwig showed up.
Oh yeah.
And sat in front of her, and I guess Greta Gerwig was audibly like critiquing the movie about like plot holes and all sorts of stuff. I was like, oh my god, this would be a very entertaining movie going experience to sit in front of somebody like that.
That's really funny.
But
yeah. So I mean, yeah. If anybody in the anybody there, like if there's a comedy in the last 2 years that you're like, oh, what about that? What about that? 'Cause stuff might have gone through the cracks. It's not about not being funny, but it's about cultural conversation.
yeah,
Which doesn't always matter, but there can be a degree of like, if something doesn't make an impact either box office wise or culturally, studios don't tend to keep making
yeah.
those things.
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah, that's kind of why these things are interesting to talk about. But speaking of all that, we can move on to our first review, which is Jason Reitman's Tully, which written by Diablo Cody. It's him and Diablo Cody getting back together after Young Adult, which also starred Charlize Theron. It's Charlize Theron. And then every name just went out of my head. Literally every other
Mackenzie
name.
Davis as Tully.
Mackenzie Davis,
Yeah.
Mark Duplass,
Mark Duplass, yeah.
Ron
Livingston.
Livingston. And it's a movie about Charlize Theron plays a mother who's expecting a new baby. She has the baby, and her brother, Mark Duplass, hires a night nanny to come help her out, who is Tully. And we kind of go from there. There are things that could be spoiled in this movie, so we might do a bit of a discussion, and then we might. I think it's hard. I think it's hard not to talk about this film as a whole and not bring up the spoiler. So we'll kind of keep it broad at first, and then we'll do a spoiler. So once we get to the spoiler part, we'll say like, "Hey, jump 5 minutes ahead if you haven't seen the film," and then we'll move on from there. But going around the table, I guess maybe we can also put some context. Like, what do you think of Jason Reitman's other work with Diablo Cody, without that kind of a thing? Because Diablo Cody, for a while there, maybe not so much now, but for a while there was a kind of a polarizing writer.
Yeah.
So going to, Elizabeth, what did you think? What do you think of like maybe their past work, if you've seen Juno or Young Adult, and what did you think of this film?
Well, I mean, she's also a writer who very much writes from her own experiences.
Sure, 100%.
And I feel like this is clearly where her experiences are now, as someone
I think she had a third kid while writing this.
Who lives there and has these feelings. And in the same way, it's kind of, it's definitely, if you are someone who is turned off by like how kind of hyper Juno was, like I think a lot of people were, this is much more calm.
I agree.
Yeah, her lead is 42, I think, in the movie.
Yes.
So the dialogue is not as in your face.
I don't think there's any pop culture.
There are some quippy lines.
There's quippy lines, but I think there's
the
a little
pop
bit of talk
culture
about.
reference are just like, this is what I liked as a teenager. But
Here's a
it's
music thing.
But like it comes and goes pretty
Yeah.
quick. Yeah.
So what did you think of this film?
I like this film. Again, I kind of have to talk about the whole, and I'll save that. But
Yes.
Yeah, I like this better. I think Charlize Theron is very good in it. Very believable. Of course, everyone just wants to talk about her weight gain, which for the film, but like, she's great. I thought the marriage was very believable. The brother and her sister-in-law, their houses, like that feels real. I'm like, it's heightened obviously a bit for the movie, but I felt they did it in a good way for a sort of like dramedy type style.
Yeah. Adam, what about you?
So I've seen Juno, but I haven't seen it since it came out, so my memory of it is a little hazy. But I do remember enjoying the movie. I haven't seen the Young Adults. I've seen Jason Reitman's other movie, Up in the Air, which I really liked. Obviously not written by Diablo Cody, but really good movie. So I went into this pretty excited. I think the good thing about this was I didn't really know what this movie was about. I had just heard of it, and I think I mentioned it to you, and you mentioned it to me, like, oh, this new movie Tully is out. So I saw the cast. I like Mackenzie Davis. She was in Blade Runner 2049. Mark Duplass is great. So I went into it thinking this was going to be a great Mother's Day movie, and not that it's not, but it's a not what you expect type of movie. But I did actually really enjoy it. Yeah, I thought the performance from Charlize Theron was very strong, and my best friend, they just had their second kid, so I kind of watched it through the experiences that she tells me that she deals with when it comes to kids and motherhood and stuff. So that was a really interesting sort of perspective to have going into it. But yeah, I thought the marriage was portrayed in a mostly like very realistic fashion. Also, I think the contrast between her character and Mark Duplass's character is very much. It is. I think you're right. It is very much heightened a little bit, but I think there is, because I've known people who have made it. I think we all in this room know people who've made it, and they have like siblings who are not in the same industry, and they're struggling. Their life is just, they've made different life choices.
Yes.
So it's very, very interesting to see that. But I thought all the performances were really strong. I really like Mackenzie Davis in this, along just playing off of Charlize Theron. And there really hasn't been a Charlize Theron movie of recent years that I've seen that she hasn't been great in. And yeah, I mean, gaining weight, I mean, that's part of the role. It's weird to me that that's a topic of conversation. It feels kind of natural for this type of a role.
Yeah, I think that happens. That's been since the 70s when an actor especially an actor who, Charlize Theron is an amazing actress, but she's also someone who's known for being very attractive. Anytime a very attractive person does that, it becomes a thing. That was almost sort of the part of the marketing for Adaptation, the Nicolas Cage movie, was how he was going to not do that, and they made a fat suit for it. He did all these interviews where he was like, no, that's the big thing. The minute you gain all this weight, everyone talks about how you gain weight.
Yeah.
They don't talk about the performance, so I'm just going to get a fat suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Charlize Theron's kind of suffered from that before with like Monster. People talked about that all the time.
Yes.
100%. Christian Bale goes through that every movie that he makes.
Yeah, we're right now currently in a fat Christian Bale phase because he's doing Dick Cheney in a movie.
Yes.
So he's walking around doing these interviews for Hostel, where he's like super thin with his beard and he's all big and he's dyed his hair white and everything. And he's like, it was great being in this movie. It's like, and everyone was like, and of course there's all these interviews where people are like, what happened to Christian Bale? And then of course people got to rebuke it and be like, he's doing a movie.
Yeah.
He's Christian Bale.
This shouldn't surprise you.
He did his thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Charlize Theron, I think even did, she was on a talk show and they brought it up and she was just like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it sucks.
I've just on Facebook, I see so many people post or reference. I feel like it's
a trending thing.
I've seen more people talking about that than talking about the movie.
Yeah. I agree.
And I guess it's worth saying, the movie did okay, but not great at the box office.
Well, how was it expected to do?
I don't know how it was actually expected to do. It didn't open in like every theater.
Right.
It opened in like 2000, and though that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, for reference point, Avengers opens in like 4,300 kind of a thing, so half that.
Yeah. But I still feel like that's like a respectable amount of theaters considering how small of a movie it is.
I mean, it's a movie about mothers and identity, and it doesn't make an effort in marketing or the film or who they cast to reach out to middle America. So I would say like already your audience is going to be very niche.
Yeah. I do feel like compared to Up in the Air, like I remember that movie coming out in 2009, very, very advertised all over the place. And I don't know because it was George Clooney and Anna Kendrick or what. That was like Anna Kendrick's one of her first movies,
I think there's something that's worth kind of discussing about that too, is that real quick, I was not big on Juno. I actually really didn't like Juno. But I love the parent stuff in Juno. I loved everything with J.K. Simmons. If you like that, to me, I think you'll really like Tully, because it felt like that as a whole film was like these older people dealing with stuff. I loved Young Adult, which is the same team and at lead. But I think the interesting thing is Jason Reitman's career leading up to this is he does Thank You for Smoking, Juno, Up in the Air, and Young Adult. Whatever you as an individual think of any of those films, all four of those films generally were considered really good, great, Academy Award nominated, all these kinds of things. I think even for Thank You for Smoking, he was nominated for Adapted Screenplay. So Jason Reitman has like this, kind of became this very quick like wonderkin guy where like the first four films he came out with were like big deal, big deal, big deal, big deal. Best picture nomination, all these kinds of things. And then he does the movie with Kate Winslet and Josh Brolin. And which name is escaping me right now.
I got you.
But that came out and it was kind of this like melodrama and it looked beautifully shot, But it was a film that a lot of people were like, there are some bizarre choices in this film.
Oh, he directed Labor Day?
Labor Day, that's what it's called.
Interesting.
It didn't do well, and that was like his first like mostly pretty harshly negative reviewed film. Like people were like, these two actors are great and they try their best, but my God, the consensus was like this wasn't good.
Yeah.
The next movie he does after that is Men, Women, and Children, which is Adam Sandler, Jennifer Garner, and all these other. It was one of those like huge ensemble films. And the main thing people remember is Jennifer Garner's character is like goes on about the evils of internet pornography.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think Jason Reitman wrote that script too. And a lot of people were like, "What happened to this guy?" That he does 2 films in a row that are like by many people's standards were the worst of those. Some of the worst of those year.
And they came out a year apart. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, Men, Women, and Children. And again, whatever you as an individual think of the movie, this is why we talk about cultural consensus. Those movies were considered very bad, and a lot of people were kind of like, "Oh man, did this guy lose his touch? Did this guy like lose whatever he had in those first 4?" And now he does Tully, and for me, I feel like Tully was a return to form. There is a couple choices made, and we'll talk about that in spoilers. But generally, I really, really like Tully. I think it helped that I knew what the thing was going into it, as far as like what the big.
Oh, you did.
So I didn't feel as much whiplash, maybe, as some people might.
So should we switch to talking about spoilers now?
Real quick, before, if you haven't seen it, we're going to do spoilers. I liked it. I would say go see it if it's still out by you. I think the lead actors I think all the actors are great. I think there's some wonderful little scenes in the film. I think it looks great. I love the cinematography.
Very well shot. Yeah.
In the film. And I feel like this is Diablo Cody's most grounded, even, again, with the thing we're about to talk about. So yeah, generally, I really, really like this movie quite a bit, and I'm
Same
still thinking of
cinematographer as Quiet Place.
Oh, there you go! Wow, that guy's nailing it this year. So yeah, jump ahead maybe about like 5 minutes or so, or if you want to turn the sound off, we'll do a big hand thing that can indicate we're done with spoilers. But spoiler warning for Tully. So Tully is fake. Tully is not a real person.
Yeah, they do they basically, it becomes Fight Club. So
yeah.
Here's the thing. I don't hate it as a concept.
I
don't hate it as like a theme, her younger self, her motherhood, what she gave up to become this person. I do like Mackenzie Davis in the role, but why not cast someone who looks like her, just because it would give it that interesting dynamic?
So this is going to get into a lot of my issues with the film.
Okay.
Yeah, but go on.
So like, if you just cast someone who looked like her younger self, not only would it be more believable, but the whole movie you would have this, oh, of course she's like feels weird about this woman because this woman looks like her younger. And we don't, like, they look so different.
I know, which by the way, if you don't know what Charlize Theron looks like young, obviously she still looks like Charlize Theron. Go check out, it's a bad movie, but Devil's Advocate, where she has like frizzy hair. If you'd even have hired an actress with frizzy hair
well,
who looked
it's
like
I'm not
mid-90s Charlize
even
Theron,
talking about you need to go to historically Charlize Theron, but Charlize Theron is a woman with a full face and round cheeks and blonde hair,
Yes,
and blue eyes, like, and they look very like Mackenzie
very
Davis
different.
has a very different just face.
Yes.
So the other thing about it is, like, it did feel like whiplash, like you said. Like, once the car crashes and then the reveal happened, it's just kind of like, all right. And like, I don't even hate that idea. It's just the way they did the reveal felt cheap.
Yes.
And easy, and it's such a trope that this person never existed. That
I agree.
It felt lazy. But again, I don't hate what it says about the concept. I don't hate what it adds to the movie. I just think there's probably a way to have done that with more gravitas than they gave it.
So my biggest issue, because I agree with all that, my biggest issue is sometimes with a twist, if you feel like all your film is doing is certain choices to just make the twist, it can kind of hurt the film a little bit. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to, like, the reason people can go back and rewatch something like Sixth Sense, again, whatever your personal point of view on Sixth Sense is that movie's not just predicated on the twist.
Yeah.
It's still, like, well shot. There's great scenes. There's suspense.
A fully thought out movie in there.
And what it's about is about the boy. It's not about the twist. And though this is about Charlize Theron and what she's going through, it then throughout the movie, I'm kind of and again, the whole message then of who Mackenzie Davis represents as this manifestation of this younger lost self is that I don't feel like we get to know. And I can understand from the standpoint of creating the film, it's just like, no, you will get to know because you're meeting Mackenzie Davis and meeting Tully. But I don't feel like we get to understand what Charlize Theron lost by having children. We don't know who her younger self is.
Mm-hmm.
When we start this movie, she's already like a hectic mess who's losing sleep. We kind of get hints maybe because we meet her brother. We kind of hear little things here and there. But it's like, I don't feel the gravitas. I think that the movie's trying to go for as far as like you change and you lose who you were and this, that, and the other. Because we don't experience any of that. We just meet Tully, but because we think she's a real person, we're not understanding that this is the representation of manifestation of what Charlize Theron lost. And it's like, well, why weren't we given these sort of things? And not like we needed flashbacks or anything like that, but why aren't we giving an understanding to some extent of who Charlize Theron is? When she was in her 20s. And we get like little hints. We meet an old roommate. We hear about, brother a little bit. There's like, oh, she used to be so much more lively till she had her son. There's little things, but the answer to a lot of this is like, why weren't we given this, and this? Is like, well, because there was a twist coming.
Yeah, I agree with that, and especially, I feel like the only real hint we get towards it is when she is in the coffee shop and she meets that old roommate.
I agree,
and you feel there is something there, but yeah, I don't think that's enough to really convince you of what she lost.
And I think the scene that now was pointing to it, they could have hit that harder.
Totally.
Like the scene where she talks about a roommate
and
hurting her. I like that scene, but I felt like we could have felt more. I think there were opportunities to know Charlize Theron's character better.
Yeah, and I feel like that scene, the only thing it really hints towards is a lost potential relationship, not really anything not anything deeper than that. Really, it's just potential relationship with this one character, whatever that friendship was, and that's kind of it. And then with Tully, you kind of are supposed to piece it together that she's losing a lot, but
which makes it more like you're going to piece it together on a rewatch. Like when you see it a second time, you'll be like, oh, well, now that I know this is Charlize Theron's manifestation of her younger self,
or at the end,
this is who she was and this is what she lost.
Yeah.
So there's a degree, and again, like, it doesn't kill. It's not a movie killer. It doesn't do any of that. And I think both actresses are strong enough that they kind of can pull you through the whiplash a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's so many great little scenes before and after. I really love the scene with the son at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last shot I really, really loved with the husband helping, which is a very simple. It's a very
I like that
simple little touch.
His wallpaper was horses.
There's there's so many little things. I love the scene at the school with the guy is it a teacher or
that
a
was
school?
great.
I thought that was
great.
wonderful.
And that's so simple, and that's all we need to see.
And so that's the only thing is it's like at the end of the day, I think I gave this a 4 out of 5. I stand by that. I think there's so much of this that's wonderful and great, and the acting is phenomenal. Person I'm currently seeing, we saw it together, and when we walked out of it, she's like, well, that was the best birth control in the world. Especially there's a great scene where the daughter, Charlize Theron, takes her shirt off after having given birth and all this other stuff, and the daughter looks over and goes, Mommy, what's wrong with your body?
Yeah.
And the theater just went, ugh. But it was like an like as if everyone had probably done that to their parent.
Yeah. Guilty.
Like you had the douche chills where you're like, oh no.
Yeah. And I've seen either in television or films, I can't remember exactly. I've seen the trope with the sound mixing of the kid throwing a tantrum, but they do that very, very well.
Yeah, I generally I think this is a really well done movie, but yeah, the things, I think there's some withholding happening, and the only reason the withholding is happening is for the twist.
And I feel like we weren't gonna guess it. I don't think. Like, if you didn't know, it would have just been two people bonding. It's like, oh, she relates to this person or is feeling that loss because of seeing another person, which is very common. So people wouldn't jump to, like, we're giving away the thing. We totally could have learned more about Mackenzie Davis, and we totally could have learned more about her, and that would have made the payoff bigger.
Well, because I guess that brings up the question of sometimes theme can overtake a movie. And the question of, like, did the theme of loss of self and discovering your new self and stress and all these other kinds of things that the movie's playing with, the theme of motherhood and how maybe it's not as great as it can be, did it need this twist for the theme to work? And I don't think it did. I think it would have been fine. Me, personally, I think Mackenzie Davis could have just been another character who does have to quit because she has to go do something else, as opposed to this magical
I think
fairy thing that's like, I need to go. I'm done. We're done. I've served my purpose.
Yeah.
I think if we'd gotten to know them better with specifics, not just like I'm vaguely this and I'm vaguely that, like it could have hit harder. And then the truck just felt so sudden. Like honestly, the truck rolling.
Oh, that car
felt
accident. Yeah.
Weird. And then the Tully thing happened right after that.
It's real quick.
So I feel like there is a way where if you got invested in them more individually, whereas like it just kind of felt sort of general.
Yeah.
That the twist could have worked, even though that's kind of a cliche twist. Like I didn't hate the twist. I just feel like there's ways to have made the payoff work and feel less flippant than it did.
Yeah, I think to your point, I do think that having more time, or maybe not, I don't even know about more time, but just a little spending time with them to get to know kind of who they are, and it not being Tully, her younger self, I think I would have been fine with it too, because then we get to the scene where she seduces the husband. And at that point, I'm like, this is really weird. Like, why would this mother and this nanny, like, what kind of bond are they forming here? And then I feel like from that point on to the end of the movie, I'm now trying to like solve a puzzle, and I feel like it kind of takes away from me just paying attention to what's happening with the characters.
It almost makes it for you less of a character piece and more of this like weird puzzle.
It's like a mystery, yeah. And I'm like, what's happening? Like, I would have rather just spend more time getting to know the characters. So, and even if they did make it a twist, I still would have felt something a little deeper with these characters than just, oh, we're gonna surprise you,
right?
And it's herself as a younger person. I'm like, oh well, it's still interesting and it's still entertaining watch, but yeah, I feel like there could have been a little more something to say about it.
Yeah, I agree. So done with spoilers. So I think wrapping it up for Tully.
Yeah.
Great performances, wonderful little scenes. It's saying something, and minus, I think, a couple issues, a couple withholding issues that we have. End of the day, I'm saying go see it. I gave it like a 4 out of 5.
I saw it with my mom and my cousin, and they both loved it. I mean, I think my mom was a little like, "Whoa, what's happening?"
Right.
So we talked about it, but still very much enjoyed it.
Yeah. What about you? What about your wrap up?
Yeah, I liked it. I think if you are interested in just a movie about motherhood or identity or open to that, it's worth saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So Tully,
Boom.
go check it out. And if you saw it, let us know what you think in the comments. Any of you did see it and you want to discuss the spoilers, let people, in the comments, maybe leave some paragraphs.
Yeah, spoiler.
Leave some dots and be like,
And
spoilers.
Space it out.
I loved it. All right. Let us know. But moving on from that, we're going to go transition a little bit of a swim into required viewing. Another film about mothers or motherhood and how it can kind of be a bit of a nightmare. Elizabeth, this was your pick.
Yeah.
So tell us what you picked.
I picked We Need to Talk About Kevin.
The Lynn Ramsey film.
Yeah. I think this is such a good film.
So, real quick, it stars Tilda Swinton and John C. Reilly and Ezra Miller. Tilda Swinton plays something of a free spirit kind of person. Yeah. She gets pregnant, and it's kind of this thing about, oh man, motherhood. And real quick, we're not gonna. I don't know if we'll spoil the ending because the movie does kind of build to that. I mean, some stuff happened in the real world.
It's a 7-year-old movie.
Fair. So if you haven't,
we can get into it some.
Yeah.
So Tilda Swinton is so good in this, and like this is a really, basically she's kind of pressured into motherhood by John C. Reilly, which is really common. She's this free spirit. She travels, and all the shots and like flashbacks of her traveling and her like adventures across the world are just like beautifully shot.
Because she's a travel writer too.
Yeah. And so she kind of feels pressured into having a kid, and she goes into postpartum depression after the kid and doesn't have a hard time bonding with them. And John C. Reilly seems to kind of blame her for it and not be particularly sympathetic. And then when she wants to have another kid, he's like not into it. And she has this kid, and it's a girl. And then she doesn't have postpartum depression this time, so she's able to bond with her during her infant stages and really enjoys that. In the meantime, the son is just the worst. The son is cruel. The son tries to hurt people. The son shows psychopathic tendencies. And when she's like worried about it, like the father is just like, you don't love our son, you're a terrible mother. So it's this whole play on like, is it her fault for having postpartum depression and feeling a little detached from this child, that this child is like this? Or is this child just like this and she sensed it? Mm-hmm. And how much is she to blame? And like one thing about this movie that's like amazingly frustrating and so well done is how John C. Reilly is like the worst husband ever while trying to be the nicest guy, because he blames his wife for anything the son does, doesn't believe her, and just allows the son to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And then it just becomes this horror film. And if you haven't seen it or don't know, then I guess I won't tell you where it's going, but it gets pretty bad.
Yeah, so the movie's told non-linearly.
Yeah.
One of those words, man. You read it and it goes, you say it in your head, and then when you try to get it out, you're like, non-linearly. Whatever, we'll get it. But so it's this build up to like what happened. But what makes the movie great is that it's not just about what happened, because you're also, a lot of the movie also takes place after the event. So you're also seeing the fallout of it, what her life is like, what Kevin's life is like. And it's kind of this back and forth between like her young as the free spirit, her trying to work with Kevin from like age 3 and then like 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And then when it's Ezra Miller, John C. Reilly. So there's all these different things. I saw this in theaters when it came out, and I absolutely loved it. I love Lynn Ramsey's use of color, especially the tomato.
It's beautiful.
What's great is like she picks all these vibrant, dark reds.
And they're in the festival with the chalk.
Oh, I think it's tomatoes.
Oh, it's tomato. You're right.
The tomato festival. And then there's scenes where it's like she's waking up and she's covered in red, which obviously all this represents kind of blood and this kind of, but also maybe birth and all these other kinds of things. And I think that's the thing is like what makes this movie work beyond like the plot thing. And we are going to, after this, talk about Lynn Ramsey's new movie, You Were Never Really Here. What I love about her films is it's not so much that the plot matters, but it's about how the characters act within the plot, how the scenes are shot, how everything is shown, and what it's trying to say within that. Because if you were to put the plot line of we need to talk about Kevin down on paper, it's pretty unremarkable. It's fairly, this thing happens, this bad thing happens, this is how people react.
Yeah.
And I think what Lynn Ramsey is shown to be very, very good at as a filmmaker, and the reason people talk about her films long after they come out, I think she has 2 films on Criterion Collection as well, rightfully so, is she takes films that can be debatably simple, because around this time there was a lot of films coming out similar to this. We can say in a minute what the thing is, but the reason people still talk about this one almost 7 years later is because of how it was presented and what she did with the material.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those, and I love when they do this. It's an editing and directing choice of showing and not telling. Like rather than having a character say like, "Don't you think this caused this?" They just show that scene out of order right before that or right after, so you get to see it.
So Adam, you had not seen this movie until this pick. So what did you think?
So this is my second Lynn Ramsey movie that I've ever seen. And the only reason I even had heard about this movie was, we do superhero stuff. And this is the movie that everyone talked about was the reason why Ezra Miller got cast as the Flash. So I'd always been interested in watching this movie. So it was kind of perfect timing that now we could talk about these movies but back to back. But this movie was just like the movie we're going to talk about shortly, so incredibly well shot, so incredibly well directed. The composition of all the shots, the use of color, the sound, the music, the characters. Tilda Swinton is so good in this movie, so incredibly well cast.
Yeah.
But I was so impressed with the editing and the pacing. Like you're engaged from the minute that this movie starts all the way till the end.
It's 2 hours and it flies.
It flies extremely, like in the best way possible. But seeing how they were able to balance the past, the present, and just to really build the relationships between the characters. I hated Kevin so much throughout this movie.
Oh, God.
So fucking much. If I was his mother, man, God damn it. I really did not like him. And the fact that she was able to really deal with it in the way that she dealt with it, and, we'll talk about sort of the big event of this movie, what happens, and how she has to really overcome all this stuff and just to continue living, and the things that she goes through. John C. Reilly playing her husband, where he tries to be the cool dad or the nice dad and all this stuff, and he doesn't really understand or listen to everything that she's going through.
Properly supportive.
Yeah, not at all. it's so
And
hard to watch.
he's like trying to be the nicest dad, and in doing so, he's just being the most selfish asshole.
Yeah.
And it's great to cast John C. Reilly in that kind of part
Because he's not a hateable person.
Yeah,
If you
he's
picked
so
a
lovable.
hateable person, it wouldn't work because it'd be
Exactly.
too much.
Yeah.
And it needs to be someone that an outsider would look at and be like, "Oh, your husband's so nice. Why are you awful?" Which makes it more frustrating.
100%.
Yes, and what's also great is you also get to see how people outside the family treat her.
The grocery store scene is one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that scene's amazing. Yeah, so I guess the big event. If you haven't seen this, definitely go see it. And again, but what I like about this movie is it's not about the event. The
No.
event. It's not that the event doesn't matter. It's what the event does to the characters, the lead up to it.
Yeah.
But it's not like the event is a twist.
It doesn't happen in a vacuum.
It doesn't happen in
Right.
a vacuum. And we also recognize this might be a sensitive topic because some stuff happened today. But basically, Kevin ends up being a school shooter.
Yeah.
In a different capacity than most
Yeah.
school shooters. He uses a bow and arrow, but he still creates a massacre at the school.
Yeah.
So the whole film is, it's again like so much of the movie is about Tilda Swinton's fallout from this. How people in the town ostracize her. They throw red paint on her house. They call her a murderer. They blame her for the deaths of all the kids and everything. There's a wonderful scene where I think some Mormon missionaries come to her house. This is after everything has happened. They knock on her door,
honesty in this.
and she opens the door and she goes, "Yes." And they go, "Do you know where your soul's going to be at the end of at the end of time?" And she goes, "Oh, I know exactly where I'm going. I'm going to hell. Thank you very much."
Have a nice
Closes
day.
the door. There's this numbness to her performance, while also being like so like ripped off the Band-Aid vulnerable. That is so hard to do, I think, as an actor, and she does it great. But yeah, that and Lynn Ramsey, similar to the movie we're going to talk about, the school shooting stuff is not shown in extreme brutality. Like
No, not at all.
you see the aftermath of things,
Yeah.
but the shot is just singularly on Kevin
Walking out.
or like launching the arrows, but you don't see people getting hit
Yeah.
or anything like that. And what I mentioned is that there were other movies around this time. There had been other school shooting films, some great, some not. But one that this came out around the same time. I can't remember what it's called, but it stars Michael Sheen, and it's also about like the parents of a school shooter and the aftermath of that and all this, that, and the other, and blah blah blah. And so that was like, and both these movies I think were in the theaters at the same time, and people were like, "Oh, it's the parents of the school shooter films." People still talk about. We need to talk about Kevin. I
Yeah.
can't even remember the name of the other one. That's not
Yeah.
to shit on the other one at all, but that one was called very conventionally told.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it helps that Lynn Ramsey told it the way she did, picked
Right.
the actors that she picked. And also, there are, and You Were Never Really Here has similar things too. There's a scene where it's like Kevin stands up on the bleachers after it's done and starts bowing like he did a performance, and you're hearing applause and there's police sirens. None of that is meant to be taken literally.
No.
It's almost like this artistic singular thing, whether that's Kevin's point of view or Tilda Swinton's memories or her point of view on what it must have been like for him or anything like that. It's all open to interpretation, and there's a lot of that in You Were Never Really Here as well. And I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it walks a fine line because you can easily tip over into pretentious artsy-fartsy. And I don't think this film does that at all.
No. Plus, I think the other strong thing about this movie is it really raises a lot of potential questions, even in real life. You know, how do families deal with an event like this when they're a part of it and their children are responsible for these sort of things? You know, what does that do to a person's mentality? You know, how does that affect the parents' lives going forward? And also, you know, knowing sort of the track record of Kevin throughout the course of this movie, how responsible can a parent feel? How responsible should a parent feel?
Yeah.
You know, should she feel more guilt, or should more guilt be placed on the father who kind of ignores all the terrible things that Kevin does?
Or is it just this kid exists this way? and
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
Nothing that they could have done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I it's great.
It's
so
such a good movie. I think alone, just what we're talking about, just the use of color in itself is incredible, and like Tilda Swinton is so incredible in this movie. It's such a great film.
Yeah. So thank you, Elizabeth, for picking this one.
Yeah. I'm glad I finally got to watch it.
Yeah, it's great. From Oscilloscope, we need to talk about Kevin. Go check it out. And the special features on the Blu-ray are really good and worth a watch as well. Really big, like long making of stuff. So going from that, next week's pick. So required viewing is mine, and I am batting between two different films. And here's the thing: not every required viewing needs to tie into the movie we're going to be talking about. It sometimes does, but not always.
Yeah.
I have been itching to rewatch Road to Perdition.
Oh, okay.
The Sam Mendes, Tom Hanks gangster film.
Okay.
It has been a minute. It's Paul Newman's last performance. The cinematographer, it was his last film. I've been dying to rewatch that one. So next week's pick is Road to Perdition. I want to do Road to Perdition. Real bad. So next week's required viewing, Road to Perdition. I think it's on Amazon. I'm sure it's rentable and stuff like that. But yeah, go check out that one, and we'll be talking about that one next week. But going from We Need to Talk About Kevin into Lynn Ramsey's new movie, which is You Were Never Really Here, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Again, she picks a plot that feels like it's well-worn. On paper, this is just every Liam Neeson movie from the last 2 or 3 years. It's Man on
Taken
Fire. And she makes a beautiful art piece out of it. So the film, Joaquin Phoenix plays essentially a gun for hire, but he specializes in saving young girls from sex trafficking. And he gets hired to do a job. The job is, there's more to it than meets the eye, and it kind of becomes this conspiracy thing that he gets involved in, and then tries to go seek vengeance. If you've seen Man on Fire, it's somewhat similar to that. It's a little bit shorter, but it's done by Lynn Ramsey, so it's a tight hour and a half. There's many great little artistic shots, and it is not at all what you would expect it to be. I adored this film.
Oh, great.
I love this movie so much. Yeah, this was my first Lynn Ramsey experience with watching this movie. And I remember I'd seen the previews, and the previews give you really nothing. It's just a compilation of beautiful imagery. And then doing a deep dive, finding out that she was a photographer, I'm like, God damn, she really uses her photography background to her advantage. Because there is some, again, just like we need to talk about Kevin. There's beautiful compositions, beautiful use of color, all that sort of stuff. And it is very artsy, but not in a, I don't know, people would call it a pretentious way at all. It's very much done in it just feels like a sequence of images coming together to create a beautiful painting. It's incredibly well done. Joaquin Phoenix, I'm not surprised that at the Cannes Film Festival last year, best screenplay, best actor, he's so incredibly good in it.
Well, it's also worth noting it kind of was a big deal because he won best actor, she won best screenplay for the film that it wasn't finished.
That's right.
They had kind of come out and said, this is a work print version. We're not done with it yet.
Yeah.
And they still won all these awards. Joaquin Phoenix. So I've been reading a lot about the movie. I saw it 24 hours ago, but even still, I'm just like, I'll devour everything. It's that kind of movie. I love watching interviews with Lynn Ramsey. If you haven't done so, I highly recommend it. She's a 5'2" Scottish woman, and she seems so friendly, and she's smiling the whole time. And she's like, I wanted to tell this story, and I love that someone who's so seemingly so chipper and nice tells these really dark stories, which feels kind of reminiscent of Stephen King, where Stephen King, everything if you watch him, is this really nice dorky guy and writes this dark shit. Yeah. But she was talking about working with Joaquin Phoenix on this, and that they brought him. He came. So apparently, this film was supposed to be shot much later, but then Joaquin Phoenix either dropped out of a movie or a movie didn't come through. And so he came to her and said, hey, my schedule just opened up. Can we do this sooner? And so she said she was a little nervous about it because she wanted to take another year to write more, to work on it more. But she was like, okay, let's do it. And they said it felt very kind of punk rock, like they were really flying by the seat of their pants on this one. But it sounds like he was a very big collaborator in that she talks about how it's based on a book by Jonathan Ames, which is interesting because Jonathan Ames is more known for his comedies. He created the show Bored to Death and Blunt Talk, the Patrick Stewart show, and he wrote the book. He wrote this book, and I guess there is more conventional Liam Neeson movie stuff. I guess the character in the book, and I guess Lynn Ramsey kind of wrote it a little bit in her original script. Was he wears these latex gloves, and there's kind of almost a uniform to it, and he has a machine. And Joaquin Phoenix was like, let's just throw all this shit out.
Yeah. Let me just roll in there.
Let me just roll in there.
Yeah.
He doesn't so there's anything, I guess, that felt like it would be in a conventional spy movie or anything like that, where those things would go left, they almost intentionally went right.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just being different for the sake of being different. It was very deliberate choices that felt very true to that character. Joaquin Phoenix gained a lot of weight for this role, and he's been doing interviews talking about his goal was that he knew he wanted this character to be like almost like a big bear, but it wasn't about having like, he kept calling it the superhero body.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't about going to the gym and having like abs and everything. So he got like, and if you last time I think we all seen Joaquin Phoenix might have been Her, where he was still doing where he was still like in the master weight, like he was still like really kind of thin.
Yeah.
He's so big in this movie, and he just like, apparently Lynn Ramsey said like he just went to the gym and did nothing but work his arms and traps.
Yeah.
Yep.
But he was determined to keep a belly.
Yeah.
So there's like scenes where he's shirtless and he's got these huge arms, but he's got this belly, and it's all just for force.
Yeah.
So that he can just be this like unmovable force that just comes in and bashes people with hammers.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many different things about this. The score by Johnny Greenwood, I loved Johnny Greenwood's score. I love the choices this movie made. Again, like where certain like there's an interrogation scene where he's trying to find the girl, and this movie makes some choices that I could see maybe turning some people off, but I thought they were so good. It's so interesting. And really, at the end of the day, I think this film is trying to say something about like loneliness and depression and all this kind of stuff, and trying to find yourself by finding yourself in another person and all these different kinds of things. But like what I like about Lynn Ramsey's work is it's not super easy to nail down.
Yeah.
Like what it's trying to do, how it's trying to do it, and all this other stuff. Yeah, there are some beautiful shots in this film. It's something I now, and currently I think it's only now in 3 theaters. It's very interesting that I think like Lynn Ramsey's work seems to be a big deal in London, in Britain, and the UK and stuff like that. Like I think You Were Never Really Here opened wide in the UK, and here in like 4 theaters.
Yeah. Really small debut.
Yeah. But it's amazing. I think it says a lot of interesting things. It shows a lot of things interestingly.
Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix is great. He's kind of just this force in this movie. But it's also at times very funny and very touching. He's got a relation. He lives with his mother, and so there's scenes in there that feel very authentic and real and very sweet. Yeah, I love this movie.
That's what I was going to say about the performance. I think, he is this big brute force who just goes through a door and beats the hell out of everybody. But there also is, he's suffering from PTSD to a certain extent. So there's commentary on that. But then there also is like a sensitivity to him because of his relationship he has with his mother. And there, without going into spoilers, there is a moment where this character kind of snaps, but it's for a very justified reason, and you really feel for this character a lot of the times throughout this movie. He's not just this brute force who goes through doors and kills people without cause or reason, but it's a very well written and layered character. And I actually, I'm also in the camp that I love the fact that they didn't go in with some like spy shit where he has to like wear gloves and all stuff. He just goes in, does the job, goes out, and he doesn't really care how it gets done. He just gets it done.
I'm very interested if more people see this movie, what people are going to think of the ending, because it felt very similar, a little bit like We Need to Talk About Kevin, also something like Killing of a Sacred Deer and stuff like that, where you feel like you're supposed to be building up to this cathartic moment, and it's sort of taken from you.
Yeah.
And there's a point to it, and I really loved it, but I can also see it bothering people. I can see people going like, well, you didn't give me the thing. You didn't give me the big payoff the way I wanted.
I loved it.
I did too.
Yeah.
I did too. But I
don't need that in every movie.
No, but yeah, I think it's great. I think if it's around you still, go see it. And when it comes out, if you can't see it that way, when it comes out on DVD or Blu-ray,
pick it up.
It might be a required viewing because I definitely want Elizabeth to see it at some point because I'd love to hear your take on it. But yeah, so those are our reviews. Again, required viewing for next week is going to be Road to Perdition. As far as films, the big releases, obviously the big thing is Deadpool and stuff like that. There's not really much out as far as like alternate programming where we would usually go, but I think we're going to be doing On Cecil Beach is one of the films we're looking at, which is the new Saoirse Ronan film based on the Ian McEwan novel. And I think we're also looking at Revenge.
Possibly
at the moment. So for sure,
we'll figure it out.
For sure on Chisel Beach. There might be another one if we do. Follow us on social media, and you can check those out. yeah, I think those are the major things. So, guys, we're going to be watching some trailers. We're going to be checking out some movies here. And also, if you saw any of the films we're talking about, let us know in the comment section below, please, what you thought of those films. Whether you agree or disagree with our takes, definitely let us know. So, first of all, do we want to do this one first or do we want to do this one last? Because this is kind of the big one.
We can do this last.
Let's do this last. So we're gonna do Mission Impossible: Bohemian Rhapsody and another one. But let us look at this is Bohemian Rhapsody
Teaser trailer.
A film that has been in the making for almost 10 years
time.
at this point.
Yeah.
I remember they had originally announced Sacha Baron Cohen
As
when
Freddie
Borat
Mercury.
came out.
Oh, yeah.
Yup.
So it has been that long. We'll get into it.
into it.
Yeah, we'll get into everything.
So now what?
This is when the operatic section comes in.
Oh, the operatic section, yeah.
Mamma mia, mamma mia. Mamma mia, let me go. Beelzebub has a devil put aside for me, for me, for me.
It goes on forever, 6 bloody minutes.
I pity your wife if you think 6 minutes is forever.
We will rock you. Sing it now. We will rock you.
Oh boy. Okay.
So is there no conflict in this movie?
So this is the interesting thing. So obviously some of the stuff that's been talked about this movie, 10 years in the making. It's supposed to be Sacha Baron Cohen. He ended up dropping out. We'll get into why in a second. Half this movie was directed by Bryan Singer.
Can I just say, I don't know if we can see it, but I hate what's happening right now on this still frame. I hate this.
So apparently
what
go
the fuck?
visit the website putmeinbohemian.com for a chance to have your voice included in the film.
That's so tacky.
Karaoke on the big screen.
That's
so
gross.
tacky.
That's gross. I agree. That's awful. Bryan Singer made half this movie and then was fired, because of conflicts with main actor Rami Malek and possibly other things that might come out later in the future. Who knows? But he was let go. The film was then taken over by, I believe, the second unit director came on to
It's
finish.
the director of the director who did the movie with Hugh Jackman and guy from Kingsman. Jesus Christ. Eddie the Eagle.
Eddie the Eagle,
Yeah.
which is a fun little movie.
I like Eddie the Eagle a lot.
So he came in to finish it. So let's talk about the trailer before we talk about everything else. What do you think of the trailer?
There's no conflict in the trailer. The trailer is your song's a bit too long. Well, your wife. LOL.
Dexter Fletcher's his
That's
name.
your whole conflict.
Yeah, this is my thing about the
What?
teaser trailer. First of all, it's a teaser trailer,
Yeah.
but it feels like a 90-second music video for Queen that kind of like summarizes all their greatest hits and shows you images of the band and doesn't really present you anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other than, like, it's about Freddie Mercury.
We don't
Maybe.
see their struggle. We don't see anything about
Yeah.
his life or his background. There's no shots of anything that's not just like Queen being Queen.
Exactly.
Yeah, Rami Malek looks a lot like him, and I
Yeah.
like Rami Malek, so we'll see. It might be one of those things where it's like, there's a great performance in a bad movie, possibly. Maybe the movie's great, but some of the different conflicts that have come out about the making of the movie outside the Bryan Singer stuff, the reason Sacha Baron Cohen, at least publicly, said that he left the film was because to be able to make the movie, they had to get the rights, the sign-off from all the 3 living members of Queen.
Yeah.
Who, understandably, it's about their stuff and it's mostly about their dead friend, did not want to portray Freddie Mercury truthfully, debatably, some had said, like, Sacha Baron Cohen wanted to show, like, no, this guy liked to drink and do drugs and have sex with a bunch of people. And it sounds like Queen really wanted to make a nice PG-13 movie to their friend.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know.
Have they said anything like, we know him and he would have wanted this? Or have they said that, like, we don't want to be remembered that way, or that was his life is private, in which case, why even let a movie happen in the first place?
I don't know. And then an article came out about a year ago, but it's been making traction again because of the trailer, is that the film will not portray Freddie Mercury dying of AIDS. So I don't know what the end of this film is.
Really?
Not that it needs...
It can't...
Not that it needs to. Not that every biography film needs to go to the grave if the person is dead. You don't need to do that. But his sexuality, him dying of AIDS at the height of the 80s when his band was huge, feels kind of important.
I mean,
it's weird because here's the thing: if people close to him, and I don't know what the motivations were. I mean, I'm not there. I don't know if the motivations is them as their band and they wanted to be more about their band's like triumph and less about Freddie Mercury. Or I don't know if it's like a personal friendship with Freddie Mercury, how they feel he would prefer to be remembered.
Right.
But if you're not going to do an honest biopic, don't do it, because that's weird. It's just weird and ridiculous. Like.
Yeah, and then also as a trailer, Brian Fuller, the TV show writer and creator, put out a pretty good series of tweets that he actually found the trailer offensive because Freddie Mercury, who's considered a gay icon, might have been bisexual, but is considered like this huge gay icon. Everything in the trailer shows him flirting with women or being with women. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people in the gay community felt like, oh, you're going to sweep us and the disease that killed us in the 80s really under the rug.
Is anyone in the band Queen like conservative or Christian or anything?
I don't know. That I don't know.
Because I don't know. That's just so strange.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, this is a teaser. Maybe a full trailer will show more of that. But it is fascinating. It's going to be a fascinating movie. I think mostly, I feel like there's a great book about the making of the movie.
Yeah.
Right.
That's probably going to be better than the movie.
That would be more interesting. Yeah. Like why they had to do this and how they felt about it. Because like this is basically like the greatest showman about an icon who's important to the gay community.
This feels like a teaser trailer you would take to like a convention, and you're like, this is a movie on Fox's upcoming slate, Bohemian Rhapsody, and it's like a 30-second little like assemblage of like clips with some Queen music, but like as a trailer.
Yeah.
Give me more of like what this movie's about.
It also feels very glossy. Not that it needed to be gritty.
No.
But it feels very glossy.
This feels like an ad for the Glee episode where they sing Queen.
Yeah. Or it's like an Apple commercial.
Yeah.
You know, that's what it kind of feels like.
Yeah.
We're like, I don't know. Like as a teaser trailer, I'm kind of like, okay, as a teaser trailer, if you're just going to kind of like sprinkle stuff in and be like, this is a movie about Queen. Cool.
Honestly, just knowing the rules for the movie, like,
why
make the movie?
You could have given us a little bit more about like, okay, but what is it about? Is it about Freddie Mercury and his life and what he went through and how he died? Or is this about Queen and the legacy of a band, their success? And if the movie doesn't touch on those things, then like, what are you trying to say with this movie?
Other than they had great music, which you could just do with a
like, I love to karaoke Queen every time I karaoke, but like, give me more. I want to know more about like who they are. And even like, I know Freddie Mercury, he's really like, people think of him as, you know, he's the image. He's kind of the icon of the band. But it would be nice, kind of like what Straight Outta Compton did, is you get to learn more about sort of everybody.
Yeah.
And I love that.
So we'll see. I mean, maybe there's another trailer that will answer a lot of these questions. And be
no,
like, oh,
it won't. We already know that they're not going to talk about like the main thing. So
I know.
it's like,
I'm just hopeful.
Like, well, what are you going to talk about? It's like he had a cat that he liked. Like, what's there?
I'd read that comic. Freddie Mercury's cat.
I do, but like again, this is an opportunity, and we talked about it earlier when we were talking about things like the Solo movie, and Lando's sexuality and Dumbledore's sexuality, and how it's kind of an afterthought where they're like, well, this character's this, and I was like, well, just be the thing, like either the character is or isn't, and if it's a real life character, make that a part of the story.
I mean,
that's
I can
a part
see
of the
like
person's
the thing
life.
with Dumbledore, it's like from the perspective of children, and he's like an administrator of a school. It's like I don't need to know the administrator of my school's sexuality or their lives, but this is the main character who is famous for I mean, because it's a rock band in the 80s, he's also famous for his lifestyle and his sexuality and what he was involved in. So
it should be rated R. It's not going to be.
Yeah,
it'll be rated P fucking G as far as I'm concerned.
So going on from that, we now have the trailer. This came out today, The Happy Time Murders, which this is the Red Band trailer.
Oh well,
we could. It's YouTube. We could show this.
It's on YouTube, so there you go.
I love singing and dancing. Hiya, folks.
That's weird. Oh no.
50 cents, I'll suck your dick.
Well, it's a great price. It almost makes me wish I had a dick for you to suck.
Oh, I'll take that as a yes.
Two of the most decorated officers in this department. What do you see?
Looks like a robbery gone wrong to me.
This wasn't a robbery. This was a hit. What the? Someone out there is killing puppets.
Hey, handsome. You looking for some rotten cotton?
I'm a woman.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's even better.
Got a good time for you.
We're gonna catch the bastards who did these murders. Because bodies are gonna start piling up.
You're one of the best damn cops I've ever seen.
I'll have your badge for this. I'm in the fucking FBI.
Oh yeah, what's that stand for? Fucking big idiot?
Cop, good cop, where is your dignity? Where's your empathy? Where is your sympathy? Bad cop.
If shit gets crazy, I'm gonna go crazy as shit.
Is that just a fantasy?
God, are you all right?
I ruptured my hymen.
This pure ecstasy.
I'm not doing this.
Do it.
Oh, sorry about your dead human friend, Phillips.
That is good shit.
Well, fuck me.
Maybe.
Is Phil in?
He's servicing a client.
Is that what I think it is? Here I go. Here I go. Here I go. Here I go. I'm lightheaded.
Can I just say that I am very regretful that Chunk and Cucumber are not here to watch this with us?
So The Happy Time Murders, directed by Brian Henson, son of Jim Henson.
Wow.
So they used to. I know Elizabeth. I don't know. Did you ever get to see that show in LA that company used to do? That was like an adult puppet show.
No, I saw like a lot of the YouTubes of it, but I didn't ever see it live.
So I feel like this feels like the filmic of that
version of that, which that was a great show. I forget what it was called.
Was it Puppet Up?
Yes.
Puppet Up, yes.
Used to be a live show in LA, and a lot of voice actors. Like I know Paul Rugg, who did the voice of Freakazoid, was like one of the main.
Yes, he was.
In it. And it just looked great. You might be able to find some of that stuff still on YouTube. It's like live black box theater footage, but it was just great stuff. So I don't know. Like this could be fun.
Yeah.
I mean,
I will say, and again, we talked about this. Did we talk about this before the show started recording? I can't remember. No, we did. We talked about it after. That Melissa McCartney, there's some stuff that she's in that I think is so funny, and then there's other stuff that I'm like, oh man, but everything she did in this trailer made me laugh.
Yeah.
Maybe not the kicking the door part, but
yeah,
like
that was the part I didn't like either.
But but the thing about like maybe thing. And yeah, I don't know. I like that there seems to be like set up for jokes. To me, I'm getting more out of this than just puppets are saying the F word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does look like it's more fun, that there's a premise to it, and I do like the idea of like a hard-nosed detective film with puppets.
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of like how well it's written, and some of those things in there were pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I like the fact that it's doing the exact opposite of what you would expect it to do. You start watching the trailer, you're like, oh, it's gonna be a movie about Muppets.
Well, and they
Oh,
really
God.
market it as like from the director of, and they name 3 Muppet films.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like seeing the opposite side of it. And I think that's that's great.
But that makes it better because like those
Yeah.
Muppet films are like, I mean, Treasure Island's my favorite.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love Treasure, but like just the amount of interaction and just knowing how to have humans interact with Muppets in a way that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
is going to be a perception check come to life, and I love it.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, so then we'll be seeing that one. That looks like a hoot.
Yeah.
So finally, the new Mission Impossible Fallout trailer. Before we get into this one, Elizabeth, I don't know. What are your point of view? What's your feeling on the Mission Impossible films?
How do you mean?
Like, do you like them? Are they something like you enjoy watching?
I think they're fine. I haven't seen every one.
Okay.
I think I've seen the first 3.
Oh, you've seen the worst 3 then.
The first 3?
Well, actually, I like part 1.
Part 1 out of the first 3, I think, is still my favorite. Yeah.
I'm not big on part 3. 4 and 5, I think, is where they finally, which are the 2 most recent ones, really figure out what the series should be, which is just like a bunch of kind of fun stunts that are with Simon Pegg and Tom Cruise doing kind of like buddy cop stuff.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think I've seen 1 maybe twice. Never saw the second or third one again. So it was a very long time ago.
Then I'm gonna let you borrow 4 and 5 because I'd like to hear what you think of those too.
Yeah.
All right.
They're fun. They're good. They're legitimately fun.
Yeah, Brad Bird and Christopher McQuarrie came in. I think JJ did a good enough job of like kind of like rebooting Mission Impossible and making it a part of like the conversation again. But I really think Brad Bird and then Christopher McQuarrie coming in, because Christopher McQuarrie wrote the 4th one too,
and directed. He
wrote the 4th.
He helped write the 4th one.
Yeah, and then he wrote and directed these 2.
Yeah, and Christopher McQuarrie right now, like Christopher McQuarrie seems to be Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise's go-to guy, which is cool. Because between the Mission Impossible films, he also did the first Jack Reacher, which is the good Jack Reacher.
Yep.
And Christopher McQuarrie also wrote the screenplay for Edge of Tomorrow. Which is the great film.
Yeah.
So this is the first time directors come back to a Mission Impossible film. They've always kind of done new directors.
Yeah.
So Christopher McQuarrie is back.
And this is also the first time that like it's a continuation.
Yeah, the villain from the last one is the villain in this one, seemingly. And yeah, let's just check this out.
There cannot be peace without first a great suffering. The greater the suffering, the greater the peace. The end you've always feared is coming. It's coming. And the blood will be on your hands.
I prayed to God that it wasn't true.
Solomon Lane escaped in Paris.
But now the world is at risk.
This is the CIA's mission. You use a scalpel. I prefer a hammer.
Every time.
This is a bad idea. Is it ever a good one? Honestly. He's not just some observer. He's an assassin.
I don't trust anybody outside of this room. You go rogue, he's been authorized to hunt you down and kill you.
That's the job. No hard feelings.
Which way, Benji? Turn left! Go, 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 go! What are you waiting for? I'm jumping out a window! Oh, sorry. Good luck.
Oh, that's where he broke his leg in real life.
Yeah.
When the clock stops, Ethan Hunt will lose everyone he ever cared about.
You don't understand what you're involved in.
You need to walk away.
Please don't make me go through you.
Ethan, that's not who we are.
Maybe we need to reconsider that.
This is all real.
Accept it, Ethan. You've lost this one. What's done is done. What's done is done when we say it's done.
Showtime.
Oh my god.
That's awesome.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
What I love about the Mission Impossible films, and I think the reason people do like them a lot now, is they feel like old school in the sense where it's like they shoot as much as that they can for real. I mean, obviously, they have Tom Cruise with wires that they then digitally take out, but otherwise, like, he's holding on to those planes.
Yeah.
He's really up in the air and doing all that stuff.
He learned how to fly a helicopter just so he could do that, and he learned it in some like ridiculous amount of time. It was like within like a week or something, and he's really doing barrel rolls with the choppers. And him and Henry Cavill talked about how the whole cast, because they were on Graham Norton, and Graham Norton asked him, was like, do you guys feel a lot of pressure to do your own stunts in this movie because of Tom Cruise? And they all unanimously were like, yep. A lot of them do their own stunts, which, I mean, it just adds like another sort of like layer to the movie and to the characters when you can actually see the actors, jumping from building to building or on the edge of the helicopter. Like even in the last movie where he's on the side of the plane, like he did all that for real. And I mean, like that's crazy shit to be doing. It also seems interesting, this trailer more so than the last one. The last one was very much focused like on the action of Mission Impossible.
Yes.
Of this movie, whereas this one is more like, okay, we also have something to say about the characters and the arc of the character, where they were in the last movie and kind of where they potentially might end up in this movie. It should be, could be interesting. I'm interested to see sort of what they do with these characters in this movie.
Yeah. What'd you think? As someone who's no context for what 4 and 5 are.
I mean, it looks good. Like they have a good cast. It's like fun shots and whatever. When Tom Cruise isn't like left too much to like his group of yes men, like he still does good work.
Yeah.
And I think the Mission Impossible films are part of that.
Yeah.
I think they're because he's bringing in like, the credit I'll give to Tom Cruise, because Tom Cruise, there's many opinions on Tom Cruise, understandably. The one credit I will give to Tom Cruise, which I think is something that's worth saying, is he is a guy who, the power he has, continues to find interesting directors to work with.
Yeah.
There's P.T. Anderson talked about famously that like when he was working with him on Magnolia, that Tom Cruise was constantly like trying to pay attention to who were the new hot indie directors coming up and could he work with them, not just on big films like Mission Impossible, but little things too. And that's kind of cool because I think like there is something to do with a big star nowadays that could just be like, oh, just put me in the next big thing.
Yeah.
And not be too concerned about who the director is.
Yeah. That was kind of the same thing with J.J. Abrams, because J.J. Abrams didn't really had Mission Impossible 3 was his first feature film.
Yeah, he'd only done TV stuff.
Yeah, he only done TV, and that's what kind of intrigued Tom Cruise to have a conversation with him about like, hey, would you be interested in rebooting Mission Impossible?
Well, same with Brad Bird, is like he liked The Incredibles and stuff like that, so he wanted to meet with Brad Bird just to be like, do you want to do a live action thing? Have you ever thought about that? And this, that, and the other. So whatever mechanisms make the Mission Impossible films work, they've all seemed to have worked the last couple times. And this looks great. This looks like a lot of fun. Really enjoy the villain, and Christopher McQuarrie right now for me has not made a bad movie, so obviously I'm really pumped for this one.
I'm sure very excited for him to go to the DC universe.
Is that confirmed?
No.
Okay.
But he has had a conversation with Henry Cavill about it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Henry Cavill wants him to do the next Superman movie.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see if that one happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys, let us know in the comment section below. What do you think of this trailer? What do you think of the other two trailers we just watched, Bohemian Rhapsody and this, and Happy Town Murders? Yeah, so guys, it's been a lot of fun. Going around the table, Elizabeth, where can people find you online? Anything you want to plug?
Just Twitter and Instagram at FordPrefixKid.
Adam.
Just Hyperheroes, and make sure you guys go check out our Patreon, patreon.com/hyperrpg. We've got a lot of great tiers, early access to shows, and a lot of other content. Check it out.
As for me, twitter.com/Jurassic Alien, and I do a bunch of stuff. You can go over on Twitter and you can see the kind of stuff I'm doing. Also, me and Adam did a spoiler-free review of Deadpool 2, and that's a couple of videos back, so go check out that one. Other than that, guys, we will see you next week with On Cecil Beach, Road to Perdition, and probably another film, so follow us on social media, and we'll throw out like, hey, here's the second film we're going to be talking about, and things of that nature. Otherwise, we'll see you all next week. Later.
Bye.